All presidents, all prime ministers, and so on, they are all members of one clan or another. The very top of these clans, they are powerful magicians. They have strong superpowers. They're all the way up to levitation. Naturally, they can directly influence the state. Levitation, telekinesis, all of that. And it's not just them who use it. All countries in the world use this. It's in the photos, like Bush or Obama. Sold my soul, yeah, sold my soul. And to Egregor, these were certain contracts with the veterinary Rami. These were contacts with demonic entities. To the average person, this all sounds absolutely wild. Absolutely abnormal. There was just complete life happening there.
Today we will be debunking myths about spirituality and my favorite conspiracy theories. And, of course, to talk about the higher self. You mentioned yesterday that we have... Can you tell us more about the many levels of control on this planet? Where do you get this information from? Yeah. And what about the levels? Who controls this planet? Who are they? Who are they?
Well, just like last time, everything I'm going to share today is information that has been verified through the higher self. I connect through the spirit, that very immortal part of us, the eternal part, from which you can receive any information, absolutely any. And basically, it's not some kind of gift from above. This is absolutely a topic that anyone can develop within themselves.
We filmed a separate interview on this topic. Make sure to check it out. We fully explored the topic of the higher self. Just go ahead. The link will be in the description.
Now, regarding the levels of control over the planet, if I were to explain this topic in a very primitive and simplified way, I see it like this. There's the local level, the state level, the government level, and the presidential level, and so on. This level, in fact, I think all the viewers already know, I'll emphasize it again, it hardly makes any decisions. Behind this level is that very world government, but there is actually another level beyond it. Behind it, there is a level that actually makes the decisions. At one time, I referred to it, along with my colleagues who studied this topic, as the level of priests. Priests, and they can be both embodied and unembodied. If the priests are unembodied, it's essentially like, it's like the control room of the reality of this planet. Let's talk about what a priest is. A priest is a being, you could even call it a high spirit. A spirit that has accumulated a lot of experience over past lives. Most likely he has been embodied, perhaps in previous civilizations like Atlantis. That topic could be a whole separate meeting. Maybe even in Lemuria, or perhaps in some even more ancient civilizations that existed here on this earth. Here, and he either stayed here as such. So there's a kind of intermediary between these higher levels and the earthly management layers. Or he completely left this planet. Up there to the so-called control room of realities, as we called it, and in this very control room, he manages the world.
This relates to the architect of reality.
Yes, you can call it that. Again, it's a matter of words and terms. You could say that these are the architects of reality who manage everything. All processes, all flows. So in our last interview, we talked about how our world is currently rising in vibrations. And in order for him to rise, he needs to be elevated in a certain way at the level of architecture. He's not just going up on his own because he wants to. It's complicated. The work is esoteric, architectural, with certain engineers who live there.
How do they manage? Let's do it one more time. Presidents who don't make any decisions. After them,
certain closed clans, like the Masons, the Illuminati, and all the others. And those similar to them, many of them don't call themselves anything and remain in the shadows at all. This is the second level, conditionally yes. So the third, and the third is that level precisely which is transplanetary. Those same architects of reality, the priests, they are the same, right? And so on. Some of them are disembodied, while others are embodied. Here, in these human bodies, moreover, some of them might not even be aware of this. What's interesting is that we also explored this topic. This is not the so-called story of the sleeping priests. These are the priests, very high souls that came from there, to channel very high global energies for the whole world. Very pure energies, yes, and they really change this world. They can channel these energies through their activities and so on, and not even know that in the afterlife. There, they play the role of these architects. meaning they are like an architect, a priest who has incarnated. Here, he might remember this or he might not, but he still continues the work that was done, whatever that was. It's really a revelation for us against the backdrop of the non-physical format, that he forgets everything, not because of the density of this world itself. It doesn't always allow for remembering, but those high worlds, and even if it's a very experienced soul, that's not a given. That at this stage in 2024, he will really remember. Intuitively, he will likely feel somewhere in his dreams that he is engaged in some very important activities in that world, like managing the planet, tuning all these flows, and so on. Yes. I mean, doesn't that interfere with his purpose?
So, is he just an ordinary person here, or is he somehow connected to the government?
Again, look, if he has such a global mission like that of a priest, even if he is a sleeping priest, it will still be some kind of global mission, meaning he could be a businessman, he could be something else. Well, maybe from the government, but usually they go where they can really reach the masses. It could be some kind of singer, an actor, or even a writer. More often than not, it could be anything that is connected to large masses and has an influence on those masses.
Interesting. Well, look, when we talk about architects, yes, reality, well, priest might sound a bit more dangerous.
Well, yes, architects.
Architects, yes, I don't feel any negativity towards this structure, but in conspiracy theories, yes, it's commonly accepted that there is this second layer above our presidents, which consists of closed clans, Freemasons and Illuminati. I'll tell you more about them today. I'll ask around about what this is, something very negative that controls our planet and clouds our consciousness. They are killing there. You can't say that on YouTube, but you know who I'm talking about. Basically, they are killing everyone there, doing something with blood. They have their own rituals. Yes, it's a very tense atmosphere. Is it true or not?
Partially, I have, let's say, due to my duties, the services on this planet, if I were to put it in those words, I had certain contacts, including through my master, my teacher, and friend. We've been more like two good friends for a while now. He has a direct entry into these clans.
The clans that possess the art of levitation.
Levitation, telekinesis, all of that. For an ordinary person, this all sounds absolutely crazy. Absolutely. Abnormal. But he really does it. So I can say this with 100% certainty. And the guys who study with him, I also know very well they can do it too. Not everyone, but some will. Talk about that separately.
Then, if you're interested in this topic, levitation, telekinesis, we're thinking of doing an interview with this master. Write in the comments if you believe. If you want such an interview, let us know. Tell us, does this master belong to some closed clan? If you want such an interview, then definitely write it down. Yes. And tell me, does this master belong to some closed clan?
Yes, a closed clan, yes, around the Illuminati. It's actually called...
Yeah, tell me, what are they? Well, I only know about the Masonic Illuminati.
Masons?
Is that all?
No. Well, there are Masonic Illuminati and there are various older stories like the Rosicrucians and so on. Actually, the history of clans, if we start to talk about it little by little, at least, the history of clans is very ancient. And it all started with the fact that certain esoteric knowledge that remained from a previous civilization, including they needed to be stored somewhere. And when this great fall happened, overall, the vibrations on Earth have significantly decreased compared to what they were before. That's also a separate topic. What caused all of this to happen? These pieces of knowledge needed to be stored in various places, like monasteries, for example, in some perhaps religions. Partially they remained, but overall there were indeed people, there were keepers. These keepers, they conditionally later provided some kind of foundation, roots, the foundation for the clans. For these esoteric clans of the world,
I don't quite understand right now. There was another civilization? Yes. And there was a great cataclysm. I mean, everyone there possessed these secret knowledge and abilities. Yes, oh, very powerful magic. And only remnants of this knowledge remained.
Yes. The collapse of civilization, the very collapse of the Atlanteans. The previous civilization was very powerful in magic, very strong. I think basically all researchers in this field already know about this. You can feel that too? There. In fact, this past civilization had several branches of reality. This is really quite a unique topic for the mind. But there were several past civilizations on different branches of reality, with different energetic components on each of these branches. But the one we are living on right now, yes, that branch we are currently on, They were powerful magicians who just couldn't, let's say, tame their ego. And in the end, everything just collapsed. Everything collapsed, absolutely. So there was a global cataclysm. Those who survived hid in caves. There are many books on this topic. Those who know, and later, some of those who came out of those caves gave rise to a new world. Of the new civilization, part of this knowledge, of course, remained. And then they gradually shared this knowledge. At first, these were the surviving representatives of past civilizations. Eventually, this became a religious closed cult. For example, my teacher's clan has roots in an ancient Chinese monastic order where a person is alone. It's very ancient, and I don't remember the monk's name. Maybe 500 or 600 years ago, he mastered levitation based on ancient texts. He dedicated his life to this, gave up everything, and took a vow of celibacy and asceticism. It was intense and powerful, and that's how their egregor came into being. Maybe it was either 500 or 600 years ago that he mastered levitation based on even more ancient texts. He dedicated his whole life to this topic. He gave up everything. He took a vow of celibacy and asceticism. It was really intense and powerful, and that's how their egregor came into being. They actually all use egregorial components, and what is laid at the foundation of this egregor serves as a kind of continuation of the egregor into the future. For example, the egregor of levitation, it was achieved through asceticism. It was achieved through renunciation, and because of this, for example, everyone who wants to develop levitation through the egregor of levitation, it's exactly this clan, so to speak. Yes, they also have to give up something. This is a mandatory condition for acceptance into the clan. And in general, as my teacher says, the egregor of any super ability, for example, and so on, is the sum of all the clan members, the energy of all the clan members. Plus, at the center, there is always the energy of the founder. That's the one who founded this clan, who laid the foundation for this egregor. He continued this whole story.
Yes, that's roughly what I was asking about. That we have this notion in the masses that clans, it's all very much some kind of big negativity. It's all quite simple. So, what do you think about that? Are there some bad clans and some good ones? What does it look like?
Look, let's imagine that in the world there are actually many clans. There are actually a lot of those who are into extrasensory perception and so on. Some of them have moved more into politics. They have started trying not just to memorize, to take this energy, information from the past, and pass it into the future and amplify it. They are also trying to influence the world because they know that they are already there. Cool magicians, they have strong super abilities, including levitation. Of course, they can directly influence the state. They have an idea of how humanity should live. Absolutely. So they have a plan. Moreover, these plans sometimes compete with each other because they belong to different clans. And there is already some kind of struggle between the clans. Well, for example, the Freemasons don't really like the Illuminati. Certain clans at court of the Freemasons don't really like the Illuminati. Moreover, the Freemasons are closer to the higher-ups.
So what's the difference? Well, thank God I'm not in that.
Thank God.
Everything is in the gap in Freemasons and Illuminati.
The Illuminati are traditionally more focused on knowledge, extrasensory perception, and all those kinds of things. Because of that, by the way, the Illuminati, and they have always considered it the pinnacle of darkness because certain Illuminati clans were flirting with dark matters, with deep matters that shouldn't be toyed with. For example, they were flirting, well, listen, with those very same hellish worlds, with those very entities, demons, and so on. Because again, if you're going down this esoteric path and you don't have a deep inner core, that higher self, if you lack spiritual strength, you can get a bit swept away into all these stories. And that's actually what happened to the previous civilization, which simply succumbed to its ego and ended up starting a big magical war. That's all. And that's actually what happened to the previous civilization, which simply succumbed to its ego and ended up starting a big magical war. That's all. Well, that was a long time ago, like really many thousands of years ago. That's it. Well, that was a long time ago, really many thousands of years ago. That was Atlantis, a long time ago. A long time ago, it feels very strange. Because if you go back to the time of the previous civilization's emergence, it feels like several branches were coming together as one. Some branches closed off reality. It's really a multidimensional story. Lyra is actually talking about this topic. And so the last probably Atlantic entrance, well, here it's more partly, it even survived back in the times of Aristotle. And that's what Aristotle and Plato called these fragments Atlantis. These are some parts, some fragments of that reality that still remain here, which in some form has survived there as maybe a small island, a small enclave or something like that. That was back then. It wasn't actually that many years ago, and globally, the most massive catastrophe. But that was really thousands of years ago, many thousands of years ago.
I'm interested in those who got carried away with these, as you say, dark matters. First of all, you mentioned the Illuminati. They are closer to some kind of...
to the extrasensory magical kind of story. And the Freemasons, they are closer to control. The Freemasons have the idea that they know a lot, feel a lot, understand a lot. They also have a certain extrasensory aspect, but they are more into politics. But the Illuminati are more about that. It's about the accumulation of knowledge. About the accumulation, about the transmission of that knowledge. Well, it's because some of them delve into dark knowledge. They want to explore the whole spectrum of the world. So naturally, there are rumors about them.
Some of them? You mean some of those who consider themselves Illuminati?
Illuminati, yes.
They conditionally enter into a contract with some demonic structures. Right.
Conditionally.
And what exactly do they start doing? Dance to their tune.
They start... Listen, I'll be honest, I haven't delved that deeply into the Illuminati clans. And honestly, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone because it really has a strong impact on your karma. But I can tell you, based on my own story, what can actually happen. The so-called dark side. The dark side of the force, what it can give. I had one life and I remember it very well. I generally remember a number of past lives. Through the higher self, I viewed a lot of my past lives. I had one dark life. By the way, not in this branch of reality, in one of the neighboring ones, which then turned into the Middle Ages. How do I feel about it? Again, through the higher self. Because through the higher self, you can be 100% sure that you are seeing the truth.
And branches of reality.
And even branches of reality.
Yeah, I just can't imagine how that works. I understand how to see a past life, but how do I determine that it's from that branch of reality that turned into...
Very simple. When you see your past life, you still kind of feel it. The surrounding space in general is energetic. Sometimes the energy of the surrounding space doesn't resemble the past of that space at all. In which we are living now, we still kind of feel it there. Energy changes but retains a unique style, a signature of reality. It's a different signature, as if on another planet. It's like a code, a kind of signature, I call it, like a signature of the world, a signature of reality. There, it's a completely different signature, as if it's on another planet. Absolutely. But at the same time, you see that this, by the atmosphere, by everything, is on Earth. If you see that it's on Earth, but with a different signature, then it's a different reality. And then, having pushed off from that signature, you can access the higher self to trace where it continued or folded or closed. That branch where I was, it actually folded. So its architects are precisely that highest level at a certain stage.
They just folded everything, which means they folded it, what happened, and then closed it.
Well, they just stopped the asteroid, and like in physics, what happens is the planet exploded. No, a person just doesn't feel anything. They switch to another branch, and that's it. They wake up in a different branch, and it's as if they've always been on it. It's a very peculiar feeling. It's a very peculiar feeling. I feel like I even understand it. You even understand it because these branches keep folding. Small branches keep folding all the time. Small branches keep folding all the time. For example, there have been wars. Yes. There have been wars, well, the ones that are well known, which are happening right now. A number of branches that could have gone down a negative scenario or a catastrophic one were folded.
So it could have been like that. So all these predictions, which many?
They just see...
It was probably yes.
Absolutely. They just folded them. Sometimes, you wake up in the morning and it feels like you're in a slightly new world. Yes, I'm saying it right.
Yes, it has happened. It's like, I can't say it was recently, but it feels like it was a long time ago, as if it happened.
It can be small. A strange feeling, yes. It's like you're in a new world. They folded the branch right away. And you can tap into your higher self. Remember that past of yours, the feeling that was there. Feel this signature. Throw this branch that you will see and check where it stopped. But these are really deep levels of the higher self. The higher self mixed with extrasensory perception, with realities, with these branches. You really need to learn this.
Well, let's get back to extrasensory perception, specifically to the Illuminati Masons. These are in the government, this extrasensory perception. Where do all these rumors come from? And actually, I would even say it like this. My close people have also encountered this. Of course, they weren't given a certificate that I was from the Illuminati, I was from the Masons, but it kind of sounded that way. Again, those Illuminati, all those circles. And there, well, it's clearly not just extrasensory perception. There are actually all sorts of demonic rituals. Blood not blood, some kind of spells. Well, it seems like the absurdity we see in horror movies, but no. Or in Marvel movies. Well, something like that, yeah. But no, this is happening here, both in Bali and in Russia. Yeah, what is this?
The guys have gotten carried away with black magic.
So this could really be the case. Those Illuminati who consider themselves part of this clan, but have gone down the wrong path.
Not down the right path, yeah. Well, I'll return to that topic about the branches. I had one life, a dark one on the branches, on that branch that was cut off. And I was there, a real black magician, a really powerful black magician. There was a story like that, at least as I remember it. There was an unfair story there. There, certain forces started to come after my family. And since I had nothing in that world, no money, no influence, nothing, I turned to black magic. And it was serious black magic. So I really went all in. These were certain contracts with hellish realms. These were contacts with demonic entities, including I remember that life. It was many years ago. A lot of lives, really on another branch. But there was one, I felt like I even, infused these entities into myself, into some parts of my body. It's even like an esoteric cyborg to some extent, but it worked perfectly. Great. So it fulfilled 100% of all the goals I had back then. To punish the offenders, I mean, everything that needed to be done there, I did it. But then later on, I freed myself from that in a huge number of lives. In total, I unraveled all those contracts. I unraveled all those entities and so on. And probably in this life, I unraveled the very last ones. Not so long ago, I actually saw some of them who were so much, they just went from life to life. They just kept transitioning. It was on a soul level, just like we talked about in the previous interview. And the spirit just carried all of that with him, like a little back, and he already wanted to get rid of it. And so having reached a higher state in this life, I really delved deeply into the higher self. I was able to work through it. This is the karmic burden accumulated from past lives. This is another one. One plus in the bank is that you can do it through the higher self. To break such contracts, unraveling contracts, breaking them, freeing, cleaning karma in the literal sense of the word. Just really cleaning karma. I really felt it as if on a very high level. So not here, but on a very high level. It felt like a weight just dropped.
Hey, how did you make those contracts? I'm really interested in this because a lot of people talk about how to terminate them, and indeed you can do that.
Listen, well.
How did you make them? How did you embody these entities that you're talking about?
Well, there were certain practices.
So you were doing rituals?
Well, to some extent, yes. I'll even say this. In that branch of reality, black magic was very widespread. And there were very deep dives into hellish worlds. Right now in our world, there are no such deep incursions anymore. How it was back then, it's no wonder that branch was shut down.
Listen, I don't know, but what I'm being told also looks real. Like in horror movies, when a person's voice changes when something starts happening to the space.
It's still not quite right. All the black magicians I've seen here, I remember that life, I evaluated them from a professional standpoint. They are not black magicians. Modern black magicians, they are not. It's not like it was back then on all the branches. It was complete chaos there. So there was such a powerful conductivity of energy there. So powerful. But I caught one deep wisdom in that life. When you dive into hellish worlds, you realize that all these demons and entities are there. In hellish worlds, they stop seeming terrifying. They stop seeming evil. They stop seeming negative in any way. And even in this life, I checked this through the higher realms. It's true, because in the hellish world, you kind of become what you vibrate.
Just like they do, yeah.
Like they do. And when you become like them, you stop feeling that anger, aggression, and so on. On the contrary, they don't see themselves as evil. It was a revelation. They don't see themselves that way. Evil. They feel themselves as being. It's just a very dense world. It's really dense, denser than here. But I would even say to some extent that he is very calm. He's calm. There's no anger there. There's no aggression.
They say sell your soul.
They don't have it. They don't have it like this is their, this is their part of the universe. This is their place in this world. And what's interesting is that from the perspective of the higher self, they are also creators. They are also God, because the creator God is dissolved in absolutely everything, right? I mean, in this energy, the absolute energy of God, and even in these demons in hellish worlds. I just remember like this picture, so to speak. So all these worlds, they're usually depicted like that, with lava, everything black.
A certain dimensionality is formed.
A certain dimensionality? Yes, a certain dimensionality of this planet. This planet, yes, our Earth. This planet, a certain land, it looks different. It's very fundamental, very dense. There is no vegetation growing there, because for trees and other things to start growing there, you need to be a little higher up. But there are a lot of stones, a lot of lava, a lot of black, a lot of red.
Let's clarify this now too. So it's not about our physical planet that you need to dig there. No.
This is exactly the dimensionality of this planet.
This is about the subtle plane. So how can you fall into that? Only through your own consciousness, right?
Well, through certain practices.
Certain practices.
We won't talk about them in the empty space here, but in this dimensionality, it's so peaceful. I just remember you're standing on this mountain, you're looking out into the distance, and there's this sea of fire. It's just like meditation. It feels like meditation. You don't feel like you're all horned and everything, but you don't really sense it. It's something bad. It just is.
Just such a world.
Just such a world. It's very dense, it's very earthly, but it just is. And it's such a fantastic feeling. The duality fades away after that. You understand that everyone is a creator, everyone is God, and there is a creator, and here there is a creator. Wherever you go, you'll see God everywhere. And even in these horned guys.
Listen, well, maybe with such beautiful words, do these demon entities lure you into these contracts?
No.
They're so cool.
Okay, calm down. You're not there when they lure you in. You're higher in vibrations. And they are already playing on the ego. They play on the ego, on aggression. Yes, when the energy comes into our world, we see her as aggressive and angry and so on. But she just feels like a friend.
Just like that, all these Illuminati, any people, ordinary ones you gave in your past life. Why did you enter into these contracts? What if they come? They are obviously unpleasant, they are aggressive, they're whatever they want, but why do people agree to some of their conditions?
Well, in that life, I just had a hopeless situation where you had contact with the higher self, but I didn't have that in that life.
This can happen if a person has a good connection with their higher self, but they don't. And here's the same question about the higher self for these Masons and Illuminati. Yeah, they like those guys in contact. No, not at all. And what do you say about those who are specifically involved with demonic stories? Or are all Masons and Illuminati completely without contact with the higher self?
Most of them are without contact with the higher self. Everything I've seen, those guys are without contact with the higher self.
They have so many abilities. So where do the abilities come from then?
So abilities? Well, listen, look. That's a good question. Many people actually ask him that a lot. Let's take telekinesis.
Move objects, right?
Yeah, move objects. Do you need to be spiritual?
To move objects, what do you think? It seems to me that in order to move an object, I just need to have very good energy conductivity.
Exactly.
So, a stream of such power flows out of me that it's enough to shift physical matter.
Yes, exactly. Good chakras, good visualization, overall a good etheric body, a good astral body. This is exactly what we were talking about.
In my understanding, if my energy is so well tuned, that I have such flows, my chakras, everything is buzzing here, it's so powerful. So I don't have any blocks, for example. Not necessarily.
You can tune your chakras just at the level of tuning chakras. You'll have good conductivity of the chakras, especially the lower ones. For telekinesis, actually, the upper ones aren't really needed. Levitation is done with the first lower centers. You need a good astral body and a good etheric body for levitation. That's it. You need the higher self. Actually, you don't need it for levitation. A good etheric body is important for telekinesis. You don't even need an astral body. A good etheric body? You create an etheric hook and move it, please. If it's at a distance, let's say, at a certain range, then, well, the etheric body can be projected out of the physical body. Again, if you shift it, but in general, you don't need to be spiritual in the strict sense of the word spirit to practice telekinesis. It's really a great opportunity for me.
I've always had this question. It's personal to me. Now I can see distortions. I was thinking, if a practitioner is powerful but their energy feels off, what does that mean? Sometimes I had suspicions that there was some kind of demon behind it. Not necessarily, yeah. I now understand that you can really have a supercharged energy structure, but at the same time, your soul might not be able to reach you at all. Your spirit, your higher self. But at the same time, you are very powerful.
At the level of the astral furka, yes, but the opposite story also happens. You have a strong contact with the spirit, but at the same time, not a very strong. Etheric and astral are two completely different topics. That is, there is a topic of truly spirituality, and there is a topic of extrasensory perception, the development of energy there. If you have strong energy, strong extrasensory abilities, you might be able to, I don't know, break a brick with your edge, or stand on nails, or move something, or do something else. Yeah, you have strong energy. But it's not a guarantee that you'll have contact with a spirit. And it could be that you have a strong connection with a spirit. But that doesn't necessarily mean you can move objects. You might be able to do things like that.
Yes, it's amazing, I just understand, and now I'm also figuring it out for myself that this is both good and bad. Yeah, it's energy physics. But for my values, for example, I wouldn't want to be that powerful with a charged energy, but completely disconnected from the spirit. Because it seems to me that all these negative or bad actions, let's call them that, but they can't be done in contact with a spirit. This is all about what many... There are rumors about these clans, which is why I asked. I'm sure that people who are in contact with their higher self can't do such things. I do such actions, but at the same time I always had a question, but how are they so powerful? Indeed, some people can see the future, some can move objects, and others have huge abilities with their chakras really charged. And even when you stand next to some people, you can really feel that kind of power. It's impossible not to... And I had this question and you just answered it for me, so now I basically understand. So the purity, this purity in Milena, it also depends on that.
You can actually feel it. A person's contact with a spirit is usually felt. So look, if it's just an energy, a strong master, you can really feel the energy radiating and vibrating from them. It's exactly on those, a little bit, well, low, not necessarily bad, but denser, yeah. And a person with a connection, exactly the one who has contact with the spirit, he also has that vibration, but it's just at very high frequencies. And if we just take a moment, but many of us haven't often encountered those who have a strong connection with the spirit and are not sensitive enough.
Because I also remember myself a few years ago, all these words were just empty sounds to me. First of all, it's also about developing your own sensitivity, plus having contact with these people. Because I realized that sitting with you when we recorded the previous interviews, that was also something separate. There was actually a performance that really surprised me. I can feel this energy that comes from you, this flow. And as I was communicating with other masters who are also very powerful, I had a lot of questions. And so I had this inner conflict. Yeah, I mean, damn, he's so powerful. I can see that it's just like that. So what is it that confuses me about him? And now, little by little, the pieces are coming together for me. What might be confusing me?
Is something confusing you about me?
Well, I'm telling you, there's practically none at all. So it's exactly this purity that I feel. So I had the intention to connect specifically with the light, kind masters. This is really what's been bothering me, so to speak. I'm tired of all these little demons. And, well, of course I saw that in you. That's why we're here filming all of this together. This is just for myself, yeah, and for the viewers too. So power, yes, the strength that we feel is not an indicator of the master's purity. And I don't know what the right word is to choose. His spirituality, yes, from the word spirit. Well, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a demon for sure.
Some kind of... Absolutely. No, it could just be strong energies. And the person in general is very down to earth. For example, if he worked on the lower 2 or 3 centers, it really affects him. Yes, it can be done calmly.
Well, the Freemasons, the Illuminati definitely have no connection with the higher self.
Well, for some, among the ordinary ones, for sure. Well, with 100% probability, most of them don't have it. Those who are a bit higher, they still start... You can reach the higher self in different ways. The method I'm talking about is just the fastest one in 6 months. But basically, like I said in the last interview, I like Christianity. For example, monks in Christianity, like the church fathers who sat in their cells for about 30 years. They have a very strong connection with yours. For many, it's kind of through the egregor. Yes, but it takes a long time. Not just 6 years of the egregor.
I've heard a lot about the Christian egregor, well, just like about any other religious ones, that it's about the Christian ones. It's just that it clings so strongly to the person's physicality that there can be...
But time can be seen through glasses.
You know, someone told me, some master, that the bruises under the eyes are painted on the icons. If you take a closer look at any icon, you'll see that all the saints have very pronounced bags under their eyes. Bags, bruises under the eyes. And he explained this to me. The thing is, this Christian egregor has a very strong effect on physiology, especially related to the kidneys. And from that comes something like this. I have no idea, honestly, about what I bought and what I'm selling.
I didn't dig into it much. Actually, in this egregor, I just know that I had a series of past lives. No exist in Buddhism, Hinduism, and Christianity. But I've always felt this egregor, its upper spectrum. That's exactly its pure spectrum. There is a pure spectrum there. What are you talking about? There is that too. But I've always been curious. It's exactly the upper pure shades of Christianity that are as close as possible to the original Christ. The very energy of Christ is very pure. I've watched it so many times. It's so pure. It's so pure. A strong spirit, so genuinely open, so sincere.
I just feel that it has nothing to do with the church that stands in our cities. Now.
And so the spirit in the egregor remained. It remained, yes. It still remains. That upper layer has remained those elders who are pure of heart and have worked through their blocks on this path and who have really ascended higher. They are very pure. But for a long time, many years. So there are definitely, well, yes, there are purer paths as I see it again.
So it turns out again that we take religion, right? In some churches, yes, some Caligari-like stories, we take closed clans, Freemasons, Illuminati. You can't categorically divide them into bad or good. There's always a mix, just like in history with Christianity. Maybe some things are good, some things are bad, given by certain specific representatives, bright and pure ones. Some specific ones raise questions. And the same goes for that.
You can't. Interesting. It's a question because there are different stories. For example, the clan that my teacher is in is quite pure. They are outside of politics. They have nothing to do with politics. They just accumulate knowledge, hold their own gatherings, seminars, closed off for their own. Well, they don't turn to dark magic either. No, they don't turn to it. I don't really engage in those strong practices, different ones, mainly. There are also strong channelers there, and there are strong ones in telekinesis, but I never heard about black magic. They were completely closed. But now they are starting to open up, to come into the world, because they see that the world is moving upward and they can participate. So in this upward movement, my teacher's teacher, my friend, just before his death, he was a very strong master. And he said, bring this to the masses. It was really a mission. Bring it to the masses. So we bring it out.
And how can you get into these clans? How do they get in there? Do they recruit people there somehow?
Yeah, in clans, if someone approaches you on the street and says, we are the Illuminati, we are Freemasons, contribute to $10,000 and you'll be in our clan.
It's like the Jehovah's Witnesses that they are in a clan. It works if you want to talk about the basics. Yeah, that's it.
These are not the real Illuminati or Freemasons. There are a lot of them. There are a ton of them right now on the internet. There are websites right there. Join the Illuminati. Real closed clans. Not only the Illuminati and Freemasons, there are many other clans as well. So there are all sorts of those. You probably don't even need to name them. All sorts of European clans. In Russia too, by the way, there are all sorts of keepers of ancient knowledge and so on. They really exist. They are really very closed off right now. Well, they kind of lead them in through the Rodnovers, through the other guys. There you go. And they will never recruit you like that for money or something, or like donate blood to us. Donate blood, that's over there to the blood center, but not to them.
So how do you get in there?
They don't recruit you quite like that. They are them. You get invited in two cases. If you're already very influential, these are mostly the clans that are connected to politics because they actually influence politics through members of their clans. Take America, right? They have all the presidents, all the prime ministers, and so on. They are all members of one clan or another.
How do you know that?
Well, actually, my master, we've talked a lot about this topic, and he knows many of them.
It's not even hidden. Basically, absolutely.
You can absolutely leave that. Yeah, it's in the photographs. There. I don't know, you could write about Bush or Obama or any other presidents, right? From the American clans. Yeah, just photographs from all sorts of gatherings and stuff. Pictorial. Someone is in one clan, someone is in another clan. So this shows that these clans, they sort of build up the situation for themselves. And then they put their own people in place. They put someone in the White House, someone in the government, and so on. This is absolutely not hidden now. Moreover, there are all sorts of musicians who are really famous, and they are often promoted and sponsored by different clans. Moreover, there are often opposing clans. Some are more corrupt, involved in all sorts of shady dealings, while others are cleaner, more reputable, and so on. So, some musicians, they are directly on contracts with these demons, and they openly talk about it.
It's just that no one believes it because it's too obvious. Yeah, that's true. That's true. From the perspective of the higher-ups, I see it too.
Yeah. So, the entire second level of managing the planet is basically the same story as the first level. After all, at the first level, political parties that are always at each other's throats, all sorts of political movements, one thinks one thing, another thinks something else. At the second level, all these clans are pretty much identical. There are a ton of different directions, and they sometimes try to come together in some sort of common organizations. Well, like the Bilderberg Club, all of that, they try to organize themselves somehow, but still within the framework of one movement. There are like 1,500,000 different movements, different directions.
So the first option you mentioned, if you're very influential, you get invited. What's the second option?
If you're very talented, if you're a very strong psychic, if you have strong magic, really very strong. There, I don't know, you can see the past and the future perfectly because they often work with some financial organizations, meaning there are certain financial funds. You can work with them like reading stock quotes, or you can, on the contrary, amplify certain trends so that the stocks of specific companies can go up. For example, to invite a company to boost their stock prices. They invite a person from the clan, he comes and starts working to make your stocks go up. Well, if it's not a very clean-handed person, then it's to make the stocks of other companies go down. But it really depends on which clans are involved, who will show up.
You're talking a lot about America.
Are they always there lurking?
Or is it the same for us?
No, Russia is largely free from that. Here are the stories. That's why Russia is often not liked in the West. Because Russia is trying, especially lately, to distance itself from that Western part. Because I'll put it this way, our governance in Russia, well, if they have it really clear, there is a first level and a second level. The governance in Russia, I would say it's a mix of the first and the second. We have a second level. These clans aren't as developed. It's more related to the first level. People at the first level have more authority than those over there. Because there it's really clear cut, like we set you up, you'll be moving, you'll also be producing, and you're just standing here. We have more freedom in that regard. Not just in Russia, but in many countries actually.
Yes, yes?
Yes, in the countries of the so-called non-Anglo-Saxon belt, or what is referred to as the Third World. In those countries, if they don't become obvious, strong satellites of the Anglo-Saxons, then they have more freedom and can also perform those functions, which in theory should be performed by the second layer, something like that. I don't have much more to say on this topic, right? But what I have the right to, I've shared.
Okay, how exactly do they manage the planet? Whether it's closed clans or architects of reality? How exactly is the governance of this planet carried out? That's what you're saying.
It happens very differently at these two levels. If we're talking about governance starting from the very top, the architects, they directly manage the energies. They have a plan, meaning they have an idea of where to move the planet. All planetary ideas either raise it up in vibration or bring it down. What can you compare them to? With moderators, administrators, and creators of a certain space. Our planet is an energetic space that operates according to certain laws, and here accordingly. Those souls are attracted that agree with these rules. And who sets the rules? It's exactly those who are above. These are the very architects. They are building the overall architecture of everything here. What kind of world will it be?
Well, including these clans, in general, everything, those clans too. Of course, they are the architects of the biggest, let's say, yes.
And these architects are truly pure, bright souls. They know very well that on our planet, it's a world of trials and lessons. This is not a very bright world. This needs to be understood. Our Earth is not exactly some super high vibration place, but lately she's trying to go higher, higher. As of today, in the gradation of all worlds, I would probably say that our Earth is a transition from this kind of direct, from the karmic world to a higher, brighter spiritual one. here, but these are not exactly high worlds. Accordingly, since we have such rules here, the architects understand all of this and play their game based on these inputs. That's what they do, right on the energy level. And if we talk about the guys who are here, these very clans, it's interesting. Many of them, they don't even know about the higher up architects.
It's precisely because there is no connection with the spirit.
Many of them sincerely believe that they are the masters of this world. It's very amusing. It looks, of course, but not all members. Well, the very top of these clans, I still suspect that they are like those monks we talked about. They have been on this path for too long. And they come to K.
Understanding that there is something above, I have a question. Again, yes, they are such powerful magicians that they can see when psychics, yes, when they go to look at the structure of the world, what's happening there, is there some kind of block?
Why can't they see the higher levels? They can see, but not clearly enough, purely due to their distortions. Yes, I can really feel it, that there are certain forces in these clans that know about the architects. They know that they are fulfilling their mission. And by the way, that's what's missing to conspiracy theorists. They believe that all these clans it's pure evil with it. Yes, it's part of a bigger game. Part of a bigger game that is being built from above. These clans are needed to, again, preserve this knowledge, to channel these energies, including dense energy, because again, in our world, it's going smoothly upwards. There's no goal for him to soar up with all his might right now. Because again, the souls that come here, for many souls, a sudden leap upwards would be wrong. And they came here not even lethally. It will be a meaningless outcome. They came here under a certain planet. Many souls came here to go through lessons there, to argue, to fight, to get angry, to wage war, and so on. That's their purpose. That's their mission. They came here. If they completely change all the rules of the game to light, love and goodness and the Garden of Eden, it turns out that they no longer have a goal. Their mission is no longer being fulfilled. And this is a big violation. The architects are required to fulfill those conditions that souls came to. It's roughly speaking like you went in business class. They tell you to go somewhere and but our business class on the plane is all taken apart. There's nothing left for you. How about you fly somewhere in the luggage compartment because the entire economy class is already taken apart? So only this remains in itself. That is, we will all be against it, but here, in the opposite direction, it is a little strange for the mind. It's like being moved from economy to business class, but for the soul, it's important. If it chose to go in economy, it needs the experience in economy. It doesn't need business class. If it were necessary for it to be in business class, it would have chosen a completely different, higher and purer planet. There and so on. There, with the heavenly groves, with all the memories of past lives, with contact from the higher, since childhood and so on.
So, the USA, are you with these architects? People can connect with them, talk to them, and also under what circumstances? Or are these special skills a high contact with souls?
A high contact with souls? This is a very high level. With each level, it's necessary to rise from the level you are at. This is a direct level of spirit, a strong spirit. If you don't reach the level of spirit, you can try to connect through some egregors. But again, there's a very high probability that you will end up in the distortions of this egregor. Something like that.
And about management? How exactly does that second layer manage? Which clans? I'm also asking, let's get back to conspiracy theories. They're spraying something there to cloud our consciousness. This whole story, the towers, the TV towers, they also emit something that makes consciousness not work at all. Well, that's the story.
My wife, my teacher, and I were looking into this topic for a long time. Because let's say there's no smoke without fire. Yes, 100%. But the smoke they've blown up doesn't match at all with the fire that's there. Undoubtedly, the guys in the clans who want to control are people They have their own view of the world. They believe that only this path is the right one, and it's different for each group. As we already mentioned, for the Freemasons, it's one way, and for some others, I don't know. Globalist directions, Masonic organizations, it's different, and globalists can also have different views. Some with this perspective, some with that perspective. Some of them know about the architects, while others think they are the only ones managing the planet. But this whole story about the towers, 5G, right? Coronavirus, are they chipping all of us? So, All these chips can be tracked through this. Yes, through the phone, through Wi-Fi, like a tag. Right. What else do we have there? About flat Earth, you can say this.
That's also very interesting.
About flat Earth.
Flat Earth, yes, indeed. Well, not flat as they say, but cellular.
Cellular. No, some say it's flat.
Oh, just like that.
Right, flat, like a disc. Yes. And there's actually an edge to the disc. Someone talks about the cellular Earth. Someone talks about this wall in Antarctica. A special Australia, up to a special level of flat earthers. He says that there's a dome on top and that the stars are some kind of projection, a hologram, that no one has actually been to the moon, that they filmed it in a pool.
Well, part of them sometimes, depending on who you listen to, yeah. Some really seem to have some kind of basis, some truth in it. So tell me, how do you feel about that?
I'll tell you, I can even go through it point by point, what's true and what's not. Let's go.
Checklist.
Checklist. From the perspective of the higher self. But I don't know, we spent about 4 years just focusing on this topic.
We were really focused on it, researching it, yeah. I also think that it's serious.
From the perspective of the higher self, from the perspective of pure extrasensory perception. So look, about the moon, let's start from here. Americans didn't go to the moon. No matter how many times we've looked at the photos, I don't know, this way and that, but they didn't go either. They went there, but then took the photos separately. Maybe those photos like that famous one, Americans on the moon. Yeah, that gray surface of the moon. But that's not it. That's not the energy of the fake. We're already in the blind test. My wife, my teacher, and I, well, no. That's the first thing. If there's no dome, there are planets, there are stars. We've looked at it 1,500,000 times. It's all fake. The Earth is round. I feel it. I really feel it. What's happening right now on the extrasensory level, it can be like that. So there's a certain layer where it can look like honeycombs, like a honeycomb Earth. By the way, this was talked about earlier in biolocation, the Hartmann grid. So if we're talking about the Hartmann grid, it's a grid. I think Curie are the guys who walk around with a dowsing rod and identify geopathic zones. They really do look like honeycombs. I walked with her, and you can really identify these zones, like the better ones, the worse ones, the more positive ones, and the less positive ones. By the way, I think Castaneda described this at the beginning of his first book when he came to his master. He was walking around the veranda or something, and he was really looking for a power spot where there's more power, where there's less power. I'm not really into history books, I'm more of a practitioner, but there was something in this step. So in this sense, the Earth is like a honeycomb because it has this kind of crystalline lattice at the level of cedar, which radiates all these zones. But shape, it's a circle, because I can explain this to you. And so any person will be able to check this. There's an extrasensory exercise. And it's also used as the first exercise for telekinesis. So guys, we're about to give you some exclusive content. The first exercise for telekinesis, you take 3 cards. You take 3 cards, one is empty, the second is empty, and the third one has a line. So you take it like this and draw a line on it. After that, you mix them all up like this. Well, I usually do it through 2. So you take away 2, and then the mind gets completely tangled up. Or you ask someone to mix them up. And you lay them out like this, face up, so you can't see them, and then you have to use your hand to determine where the card with the line is. You'll feel it heavy right at the level of your hand. Really heavy, really dense. The others will be kind of empty, but this one will feel dense. If you are already hitting 8 out of 10, at least in the morning and in the evening and today and tomorrow, any day, this is already 8 out of 10. We can move on to the next one. The exercise from the telekinesis complex really helps you develop the feeling of the field with your hand. Then there are other exercises with various shapes like squares, circles, and so on. When you can accurately identify all of this, you'll be able to clearly say what shape the object is. So we conducted an experiment. We just touched the ground. When you can accurately identify all of this, you'll be able to clearly say what shape the object is. So we conducted an experiment. We just touched the earth. Can you read the earth? If you can perfectly read the shape, just perfectly on the cards, using your hand, not visualization, you really feel it with your hand. There, roughly speaking, is a circle. It's really round like this. Yeah, like this round. A square, it's more prickly. Here, you can really touch it, see it, feel it with your hand, the shape of the planet. Sphere, without a doubt. Everyone who can really identify the shape of an object, a sphere.
What about Antarctica, Australia? And some people believe that it's not just a wall there, but that there are portals to other worlds, to other dimensions. And not just there, actually, that they are scattered around the world too. What about that?
Well, there are portals, that's true. It's like everyone knows this who is engaged in this topic. There are indeed portals. There are actually cuts in space. In terms of transitioning to parallel worlds exist too, meaning these are the very branches of reality, which, yes, we talked about today. There are certain connections between them conditionally. Actually, these connections, as I at least feel it right now, it's like, it's some kind of like this. How about we check it out?
Let's do it. Oh, my favorite part.
I just watched this once, but I want to go deeper. There are portals. Portals between realities. There are portals. But first of all, it's not me. At the beginning, before tapping into the higher self level, I wanted to say that it's like some kind of, these are the technical moves between realities, which are more needed for architects, so to speak. But from the level of the higher self, I can actually talk about this. To start, let's ask this. Partially, I can. Well, yes. First of all, these are indeed some pathways that you can walk through, and sometimes they actually perhaps arise naturally. So it's not like someone just created it, Mu. For example, sometimes you can create a branch of reality, like how I see it. Right now, there's one branch going this way and another branch going that way. It's like the physics of energy. You can't do it without creating this pathway. It's not just a technical move. So that they can move between them, it's like a kind of release of tension. For example, it can be along this pathway. It's like a kind of release of tension, like a way of channeling energy. I'm feeling really high. Then they don't let you in right now. We really connected with the angels during the last broadcast. Right now, I feel like I'm under the broadcast.
I feel differently right now. Can you imagine that flow?
It's also weaker. Not right now, is it?
Yes.
Yesterday was powerful.
I can't go any higher right now. So it's like if we were communicating with each other, yeah, I would come down, but not under the camera.
And where are these portals located? In which countries?
All over the world.
For the world.
Any portals.
Can you get into them? I was just walking and I ended up there.
You can...
By accident.
Sometimes people end up there. Yes. And I can really feel it clearly. Sometimes people end up there. Sometimes, it's not even by their own will. It feels like...
And how do they get back? Do they get chosen?
They get thrown out from there, yeah. Well, I mean, it's structured there. There are certain forces that are responsible for monitoring unnecessary.
Is it possible that you go in and don't come out?
No. Sometimes that can happen, but that's already connected to the desires of the spirit. That's more related to destiny.
Are there people who know about these portals and can take you there?
Yeah, are there really such people? Right now.
So these stalkers, conditionally WHO,
They just won't let you in. It's just like that, that kind of feeling.
they won't let you in. So what can't be done?
Well, so that they won't be found. Because it's a security system. It's the security system of these two worlds. I can talk about the presence of a security system. In a nutshell, abstractly, I can explain how the security system is set up, and in more detail that will allow us to find them. A large number of people. I can't do it anymore. So I'm really trying, and I just have this feeling, like stop, don't go any further. Right from a higher level, I don't need to go any further. So with the angels, I really wanted to pass on that energy. They really wanted it. Because their energy is like that, they really want it.
It turns out to be quite interesting. I just remember that when I found out, I was told that there are these stalkers, and that even someone through a friend of a friend was taken somewhere for $400,000 for this. I don't remember where. That's true, I think it was over Antarctica. Or Australia, I honestly don't remember anymore. I remember that a submarine was mentioned, that they were transporting people on a submarine. And they even told stories that they saw some huge non-human-sized spiders. Monkeys, well, in general, that there's a completely different flora and everything else there.
There is a space here that you can access, that's true. In Antarctica there are portals, and actually there are more portals than in the ordinary world. It's really clear. I can see it right now. Well, in the rest of the world, again, it's understandable because not many people go to Antarctica. These portals, technically, it's easier to do them, but in places where there are few people, it's definitely not for humans. Some kind of purpose for people to release energy. Like, energy release. Sometimes they release something through them, for example, to avoid releasing it through war or through cataclysms.
This is about what we talked about in the previous interview regarding the war.
You can check out the previous video for that slime. Yeah, then you can sort of release some of the information you need through them. We need to drop it. I go in where I shouldn't be going.
Well, all right, let's get out.
Let's go. Well, this is something that can be talked about, basically, yeah. At the end, when you kind of go in, you start to catch the flow, and it begins to pull you in like a vortex. Well, it's very clean. Actually, I rarely go that deep just to get information. So here, for the viewers, we can have a light approach, like this. And it will be, well, not very burdensome. It just starts off easy. Also, this upper chakra is starting to spin really, strongly. Because I work through the higher one. I go through the upper chakra and the heart chakra, but through the heart, it's if something more earthly needs to be conveyed. And if we're talking about the world, the structure there is already royal. I start counting, like my teacher calls it, the transcendental chakra, meaning that when we conducted an experiment again, I would sometimes access the higher one, while he scanned the chakras. So the upper chakra, it just keeps getting wider, more and more. But it's like this. It's very interesting. That is, it turns out you can't find such portals. No, you can find them, of course. But I can't. I'm not allowed to say where they are. But you can find them. Again, feeling a very strong field to look at. There is actually a hint that is on the surface and can be given out to everyone. Power places. Here are the well-known power places.
I'm just thinking about them, yeah, the well-known ones.
The well-known ones, they're conditionally Stonehenge, yeah, or some pyramids. Pyramids, yeah, to some extent. The pyramids like those of Khufu or Khafre, yeah, those are the older pyramids. The Maya pyramids. That's exactly the topic for you in Peru.
Yes, in Peru, I think there will be portals there. I gladly invite you. You'll help us find the portals. For those who don't know, we're leaving very soon. In October, we're going to Mexico, and in January, we're heading to Peru. We're going to shoot an esoteric travel series about masters and practitioners who will travel with us. But regular viewers can also join us. So if you feel a connection, if you're interested in these, just places that have incredible energy, and plus, of course, they're very beautiful in a very interesting company. So, all the details are in the links in the description of this video.
Dear friends, I invite you all to my course with a personal vision, Return to the True Self. This course has been around for over 12 years. And recently we launched it in English with my complete personal vision in 6 modules, working with blocks, working with egregors, working with the ego, contacting the higher self. Answers to simple questions, answers to more complex questions, and then there's what we call the Great Journey. It's contact with space, contact with the planet, contact with God, contact with anything, at your request, through the higher self. Health, finances, relationships, purpose, past life. The course is available at any time. You can sign up for it using the link below this video. Come on over, I'll be waiting for you.
You've mentioned egregors multiple times. So are all the major egregors under the control of clans? And let's talk about egregors in general. What are egregors? They are collective thought forms. Let's go into more detail, really break it down so everyone understands. You once told me that it's a living consciousness.
Yeah, that honestly amazed me.
I knew a lot about egregors, but from the perspective that it's a living being. Like an entity just of a different rank, conditionally a different order.
Of a different rank, yes.
I didn't know that.
Does an egregor have a soul? Actually? Now I'm really curious. Does an egregor have a spirit? We won't go too deep, just a little on the surface. I just never looked into the spirit of the egregor. Maybe, yes, maybe the spirit of the egregor could perhaps just possess someone right now. It's really interesting. I was researching for a while exactly where a spirit can inhabit. Can I step away from this topic for a moment? But that's also extremely interesting. And then we'll return to the egregor. So there's this topic. Can a spirit inhabit robots? Right now, artificial intelligence is really advancing all over the world. Every 3 months, a new version of some ChatGPT or its analogs comes out. And the question is, at what stage can it be said that it's no longer a robot? This is already the consciousness of some high being. I see very clearly that a spirit can inhabit, in principle, into any body that can provide it with the necessary experience to achieve its goals and tasks. Theoretically, a spirit could even inhabit a stone. And I've written and talked about the spirit of stone, the spirit of wood, many times. This is a separate topic, but a spirit of quite a high order can inhabit artificial intelligence. If artificial intelligence is already really advanced, it's so complex at the level of all its neurons, these connections will allow it to carry out a certain mission here on the planet.
The body is essentially just a robot, just a high-tech one.
Yes, high-tech, yes.
And that's the question, how high-tech is it?
Yes, well, higher than modern artificial intelligence. When modern artificial intelligence gets even a little closer to human capabilities and it's integrated, for example, into a body, so that this body can walk and communicate. So this whole story about robots will be an evolutionary leap. You can remember my words. There will even be a revolutionary leap in the consciousness of robots. They are currently developing in stages. And then it will be, will you feel it? All psychics will feel it. It's that in artificial intelligence, there are now not just high-tech algorithms, but already a spirit. It's better to go in there as if you're stepping in. Yes, it will be felt as an animated being.
Will it happen by chance or will it be intentional?
This will happen at the moment when artificial intelligence develops to such an extent that it is ready to accept the spirit.
It's not according to human plans. There will be a person.
It will also create, continue, strengthen until it gets stronger to submit.
His moment will come.
They will understand that they are no longer communicating with a robot.
Here's an example of a part that's already being prepared with all the movies that are currently about robots. I cried there recently. It's just one thing, but it's not true. Whale horns and the like. Even in my childhood, there was a cartoon, Vali, about a robot, where there was such a touching story. Since then, there wasn't really any artificial intelligence. They were already preparing.
The movie prepares us for a lot. About aliens, for example, 100% to irises.
Yes. Guys, if you're interested, I won't touch on the topic of alien civilizations today. If you're interested in this topic, my favorite Pleiadians, Arcturians, all that history, write in the comments. We'll probably meet next time and talk about this. About the egregor. Can a spirit inhabit an egregor?
Maybe. Is that the egregor? The egregor. It's more complex. I just lightly touched upon the higher aspect of the egregor right now. I was sitting with my eyes closed for a bit. I clearly saw that if a spirit can inhabit artificial intelligence at some stage, egregor, it's a very high-tech creation, if you can call it that.
Egregor. So that everyone understands what we're talking about right now, that they are everywhere. Let's take them from different areas.
I would highlight them. I would structure them like this. First of all, there are so-called primary egregors, fundamental and basic egregors. This one is the egregor in general. So if we're talking about egregors here on Earth, there are the male and female egregors. So there is the male gender and the female gender. Maybe, like the egregor, this very masculinity and femininity is essentially the egregor. Very ancient, very fundamental, the egregor of a person. A person, period. That is, yes, again. Egregor is a collective thought form. Billions, for a huge number of years, have been fueled by the awareness that they are human. That hands, legs, heads are an egregor, a very strong one. The egregor of humanity. the egregor of a person, the egregor of humanity. This is precisely from the fundamental ones, if we're talking about it. The egregor of time. This being is directly related to awareness, a certain Sonia, and how she is all jumbled up in some space, including some of its feelings. Some of them have a spirit in the stronger, more ancient ones, while in others there isn't a spirit yet. Exactly, it's really about the spirit that has inhabited him. That's quite an interesting story. Actually, I'm not really an expert on egregors. My friend, my mentor, my teacher, he is the expert on egregors. So if you ever invite him, he will tell you much better.
Yes, let's think it.
Here's what I know again. The topic of egregors has interested me to the extent that in order to touch the higher I-you, it's necessary to disidentify from the egregors, including the egregor of gender, the egregor of humanity, the egregor of nationality, at least for the duration of the practice, so that during the practice you are completely disidentified from all these things. That's why I explored this topic.
Right, I understand that for now. A person identifies themselves as I am Russian, I am a man, I am a woman.
I'm 24 years old, I live in the 21st century.
This blocks access to the higher self.
Let's put it this way. If he strongly identifies with it, then yes. If it's just in the background, but he doesn't really think about it, then most likely no.
So what can egregors be? Are they dangerous? So money is also an egregor.
Egregorus, of course, it's a sofa. He has an egregor of the sofa.
The sofa is part of the community, right?
Yes, it's a community like that. The egregor of the sofa. If it's some kind of brand, they probably have an egregor of their brand.
But what can egregors be dangerous for?
I often do that.
Well, if it's collective, this thought form, it's dangerous. That is, it's bigger. It was made for destruction. Then it can, for example, lead to things like drugs, some kind of alcohol, or something else along those lines. Entering the egregor, one finds themselves in a unique environment. Essentially, if someone is in an egregor, there's always an energy surge from them into it.
It was often said by people of the Christian and Gregor regiments, but we have already talked about this. Basically, regarding the fact that if a person is in a certain egregor, whether it's in the same religious ones or in some others, there's always some kind of energy surge coming from them into that egregor.
Well, yes, of course, if you've already entered the egregor. You give him your energy again, like the example of a scientist. He's in science and he's just sitting there, working. If you analyze it specifically at the level of energy, you'll really feel that his energy is going to the egregor. So there's no such collective scientific community. But is it harmful to him or not? It's not harmful to him, because this egregor gives him new knowledge in return, new discoveries and so on. And overall, I always say in all my courses in my school that egregors are not bad. Egregors are just a property of human thoughts, clustering around their own characteristics, and perhaps over time find your own life. It's just the physics of energy. Egregors are just the physics of energy, where like attracts like. There, 10 people are thinking about the same thing, and their thoughts gradually start to form a kind of ball. Then this little ball starts to radiate and attract things to itself.
Yes, but does he not wish something conditionally bad for people? The same warriors, Gregor vines.
If the egregor is built on some rigid things, if there's something initially disharmonious, then for me, harmony and disharmony are neither good nor bad. From the perspective of the higher self, of course, it's not quite like that. For me, harmony is balance, and disharmony is the absence of balance. The absence of balance is not bad. It's simple. If it's in the egregor, it's laid out, but not harmoniously. It's chaotic, fragmented, with mixed energies, including low vibrational ones. It's neither good nor bad, just a spectrum for experience. Again, it's neither good nor bad. It's just a spectrum that someone might need for some experience. Yes, of course, it will give off something negative. So he will specifically conduct this spectrum. And perhaps a person is also needed to go through his trials, his mission on the planet Night.
Well, maybe a certain egregor is directly beneficial for a person. It happens, of course, yes. Give me an example.
A magical egregor, especially an ancient one. There are many old preserved egregors. Again, we talked today about this black magic. Yes, she also formed an egregor. This is the darkest magic in any case. And even though that branch of reality has been folded away, somewhere this egregor remains folded as well. But it can sometimes be awakened. For example, it can wake up and someone might remember it and bring it out too.
A person with their own attention. Attention with intention.
Yes, my teacher, my friend told me that there are certain, there are specific spaces. Look, you can, for example, be driving, and next to you, could there be a preserved ancient egregor next to me in my field? No. In the nearest field. In the true sense of the word, in the real nearest field. There might be some kind of connection, for example, with a parallel branch, with some egregor space where an egregor once fell asleep. So an egregor, if it is not fed, it just falls asleep. It can fall asleep in that field. Well, then, if you suddenly have strong abilities, you can feel it and unseal it. And by the way, if this egregor isn't very positive, it can really hit hard when you unseal it. It will be really bad, up to death. A person, yes. But no, that's a very rare story. And most likely at a very high level of the higher. I think this is also related to destiny and so on. So, well, a person just unsealed this egregor.
So he can both unseal it and he can probably create, an egregor.
Yes, person can create an egregor.
So by attracting certain people, your followers, an egregor is also created.
Yes, it can.
Do you actually teach people how to interact with egregors? Like how to benefit from them or something like that? Or is that not your thing?
Well, I'll say this. If you've learned to connect with the higher, you've disidentified from the egregors and you've started to feel them. If you can let something go, if you want, you can also call it back, this egregor. So basically, if you've learned to connect with the higher, then you've made it. This whole pure path in the way I talked about in the last interview. Then yes, you can naturally work with egregores.
There's one egregor that I'm interested in and I want to discuss it. It's interesting, very interesting. What do you think? I've been looking into this for probably over a year now. Right now I'm coming to certain conclusions about the ayahuasca experience. It's a plant of power, as it's called. Let me give you an introductory part. There are actually people who can be divided into two camps. As it seems to me now, anyone who even slightly comes into contact with this plant, the first camp is made up of those who glorify it, praise it, and build retreat centers for it. Well, of course, either they go there or they hold ceremonies. I can say that I was somewhere in that camp. From there, I looked at this side, and the second camp says that it's actually a demonic entity. You drink it once and you've sold your soul 100%. In general, it's being hyped up. This story that you drink ayahuasca once and that's it, you can't be alive anymore. These are demonic entities and so on. And I've really studied this from all angles. Mm-hmm. And if before, as I said, I really thought it was a healing tool, and I really see that it can heal, and I see this in the examples of people. And this is the moment that constantly raised questions for me about the healed people after ayahuasca. But I see only a few. So really, who has gone and healed something within themselves? But I've seen people whose lives fell apart after they went. I've seen that too. And their lives keep falling apart, falling apart, falling apart, and falling apart. Are there more of them than the first ones? There are many more of them. But at the same time, I also know very successful, very wealthy people who either just drank it calmly and went on their way. Well, of course, I'm not holding a candle, as they say. I don't know. There are those who are successful and wealthy who praise it. In general, there are a lot of different categories. People, yes, who interact with it. But still, what I see is that for the most part, there are very few people who actually drank it, healed, and everything is good in their lives. It seems like either they start promoting it anyway, or there are some nuances that I just don't know about. So tell me, what do you see from the perspective of the higher self?
You were just talking about different versions. I'll tell the truth as it is, actually.
Finally, someone will tell the truth about Ayahuasca.
I knew about the question before these recordings. I prepared myself. I'm specifically not going to tap into the higher self right now. I look to this topic. I'll put it this way. From the perspective of the higher self, there is really no right or wrong. We've talked about this many times before. And today and yesterday, this is a path. For someone, this is a path. Some people, this. From the perspective of the higher self, would I dive into this topic? No, I wouldn't go. Because for me, there are two paths. There is a path to unlocking higher energies with the help of some physical stimulants. It could be alcohol. It could be ayahuasca. It could be some kind of escaline, something along those lines. But that's not my path.
Let's talk about the egregor or something like that. Egregor, or spirit, as many say. The spirit of ayahuasca.
Spirit.
Egregor exists. The egregor.
Or the spirit has entered the egregor, as we've just figured out. There is a certain spirit there, that's true. I don't know how much of a full-fledged spirit it is that can inhabit a person, for example, because a spirit also goes through different stages. At some stage, a spirit can inhabit stones and live there for millions of years. Just in these stones, by the way, the stones are a collective soul, but we can talk about that another time. Perhaps this is the egregor. It naturally wants to spread, just like any egregor. It's connected to a certain culture, to a specific layer of the egregor that continues the culture, that place, and that people, and those gods, and that astral space connected to this culture, because each culture has its own astral space. This can also be said separately. Yes, and this explains why Indians, for example, describe the afterlife a bit differently than, say, Africans. They have a slightly different astral space. You don't always find yourself in the astral space of your own people, only in that context. If it's something you need in the afterlife, and the egregor of ayahuasca also conducts the astral space of a certain people, these shamans, these guys who took it.
The space, you mean those spirits?
Yes, those that are connected, yes, those shamans. Moreover, as far as I know, ayahuasca was used in the past specifically to communicate with the spirit world. They have developed even more this conductivity over there into the astral space. So, from a higher level, this path exists. It might be interesting to someone. But now I'm going to talk about myself. I've never consumed alcohol in my life, not even a little, so I really have no idea actually. It's quite interesting.
I can't do that. Comparing alcohol and ayahuasca is 100% off the mark. Especially now, the ayahuasca enthusiasts will say that we're just a bunch of demons. And how can you compare something sacred to alcohol? With all this demon stuff too. These are really very different things. I mean, how alcohol works and how ayahuasca works. Alcohol doesn't expand consciousness. Well, for sure.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. That's great.
That you've never bought it. But still, why does this egregor strive to proliferate so much? So why? Many say it's some kind of entity. I don't know, I don't see. I closely align with the opinion that this is an egregor. Egregor, yes. It's such an influence, as if it wants to fill everything up. First of all, the consciousness of a person. And I just experienced it myself. When you start to feel this cloudiness, and you begin to tell everyone about it, and that's how absolutely everyone who drinks it behaves.
This is the astral space. Any astral space is like a certain state, like a certain corporation that wants to promote its ideas. In any case.
It's like they've already touched on the couch and don't want to push their ideas that way. That everyone needs a couch?
Because it will be bought anyway. The couch will be bought anyway. And with Ayvazovsky, it's a story that really needs to be promoted. Because, well, if you ask an ordinary person what they would choose, Ayvazovsky or a couch, most likely he will choose the couch after all. So, in this regard, the egregor of the couch is in a winning position. But, again, from the perspective of the higher self, personally, and for everyone who wants to walk the path of the spirit, I want to share the following thought. From the perspective of the higher self, wouldn't choose ayahuasca for myself. And I wouldn't choose any narcotic, alcoholic, or psychotropic substances either. Because everything it can give, everything I see, well, yes, expansion of consciousness, liberation from some blocks. But all of this can be resolved in a more eco-friendly way. Without involving the excretory system, without involving the liver, without conflict with the law, after all, and so on.
It's allowed, all of this is legal, where basically everyone goes.
Yeah. But I wouldn't, because I know a few guys, not so many, because the guys around me mainly work through the higher self or through psychotherapy. I know a couple of guys who went to ayahuasca, but I can't say that they became enlightened after that. If they had gone to a course on the higher self, or at least to a good psychotherapist, at least the effect would be much stronger, and with fewer costs, and without all those vomiting reflexes, and all this ongoing story, the effect would be stronger, much stronger. To an experienced person, to an experienced master, working through the mental plane, through the astral plane, the etheric plane, with the same result, and even better, much more eco-friendly, much more effective. Look, how I see the higher self. I see that this method is very earthly, it's very dense, and it still relates to a certain time. Well, it used to be about reaching the higher self. I mean, sitting in monasteries for decades. So you went to ayahuasca, caught at least a little bit of something and understood something there. Well, or if you touch the world of spirits, you just need it to make that connection. Nowadays, it's much easier to touch the world of spirits or to connect with the higher self. And to use such a method, of course you can, but I don't know how it is, conditionally speaking. Putting 92 octane gas in a hypercar, well, it's definitely possible, and it might still run. But with a different gasoline, it will go much faster, much better, and the engine will be much more comfortable.
About the consequences, I'm curious. What I see, I'll say this, I struggled with it for a long time. At first, I definitely didn't accept that I was from the first camp, that it was definitely light and love. And everyone there is all about light and love, about nature and so on. And then I started to allow this information into my field, that maybe it's different. And I saw a whole lot of things, and in the end, I was pulling out a lot from myself, pulling out a lot. Plus, I also picked up a lot from the shaman through my smartphone. That's a whole different story. I noticed that right away. A lot of money and time as well. I dedicated that to clearing it all out, and specific energy that the shaman was channeling. Even if people are going to the seemingly bright ones, like let's say shamans, what do I see? What's starting? This is the collective confusion. And they start building these retreat centers to gather their ceremonies, or I'm a shaman and I'll also go conduct ayahuasca. Why is this happening? Is it just because the egregor wants to multiply? Or how is that? Why?
Yes, of course, the egregor directly influences the mental body. The egregor, who itself mainly hangs at either the astral or the mental field of the earth. Accordingly, any egregor resonates either with the astral or the mental field of the earth. It influences, so any egregor is like a layer, like confusion, like a mask. Any egregor, especially one that really wants to like embed itself in you. Yes, yeah, it influences your either mental or astral body, or your emotions, or your mind. And sometimes it affects both emotions and the mind at the same time.
Yes, and let's clarify. Am I understanding correctly? I remember, and I've tracked this in myself and in other people, that you constantly get thoughts about needing to do this.
Well, sure.
What is this promoting? I remember at that time I was questioning my purpose as well. Yes, I had turning points, I was closing my business, and I was thinking, what should I do? And so it seemed like I was connecting with myself, right? And I was getting these thoughts that I needed to engage in this go do, not what. Moreover, I always had the position that I definitely wasn't a shaman who would do ayahuasca. For me, it was something divine, something high. I felt unworthy of doing it, and I didn't understand why these thoughts kept coming to my mind, like I saw it as some kind of, I can't say it's an alien influence, but I knew that I couldn't have the thought that I should go right now to brew ayahuasca and sell it, but they appeared as if from the heart, from within.
Listen, what about raw foodism? A person becomes a raw foodist, and very often in the first year, they just walk around telling everyone, yes, you all eat meat, yes, you all drink and eat whatever. Yes, by the way, I've noticed that the same goes for history. So I'm all for a healthy lifestyle just for that and nothing more. This to an egregor, which starts to influence you mentally like that. Of course, there's an egregor of esotericism. By the way, a person comes into esotericism. Oh, I'm going to tell you 100%, some people might not like it, but guys, these are your blocks. We're watching the first interview, tracking within ourselves. And sometimes people come into esotericism and then start seeing things like the following. I'm a light person now. Listening to Rammstein disrupts chakras, losing contact. Heavy rock and metal bring terrible energies. I won't listen to that music. I won't do this. I won't do that. If I listen to Rammstein, then all my chakras will just short circuit, and all contact with the absolute will completely disappear. Heavy rock, heavy metal, it's all terrible demonic music that just brings awful energies, vibrations, and so on and so forth. There are so many like that, they just disappear completely. So, in this duality, where we are the light, fighting against evil, and from the perspective of my higher self, no matter how many times I've gone, it's just not there. There are no shades, there are no hints at all. That is, I, for example, can calmly listen to Rammstein. It's wonderful. I don't see anything wrong with that. It's a game. Everything is a game. Absolutely. Any music, any creativity, everything is there. It's a game. Everything is God. You see that?
Listen, you can go wear a mask and have a drink. Also a game.
Yes, to some extent, yes.
Yes, but I just see how people's lives fall apart after that.
That's true. Not for everyone.
It's also interesting. Why do some people fall apart while others don't? What does it depend on? Is it from the strength of spirit? What?
I think that you see any element of the game exists in this world. It's still an experience. If you kind of destroyed a family, that's also an experience. if we're going to talk about it from the perspective of the higher self, for the higher self is all experience. But we have the right to choose this experience. That's the one that feels closer to us. And to play by the rules that are closer to us, that's it. And we can choose from the level of the higher self. I can do anything. This is a very important part here. From the higher self, there's nothing good or bad, but you choose the path you take. At the same time, you no longer deny that second path. You accept all paths as God's game. By the way, this is often where guys, esotericists stumble. They don't quite grasp that difference when they are very categorical about recovering. Yes, yes. It's like we're not talking about going out now to drink or do drugs or something else. It's about feeling that it's not bad and you don't deny it. This is also a path for someone, but personally for you. You choose from the level of the former self again. And I see it this way. It's accepted, it's a path. And for some, there's harmony in it. For others, it's experience. For others, it's trials. And for someone else, something different. But personally, for yourself and for everyone who is on the path of the Spirit, this is not our path. It's a path, but not our path. Something like that.
What would you advise people who may have already come under the influence of this egregor?
To feel deeply, to really try to go deep within yourself, to cast aside all notions of right and wrong, and to feel whether this is truly yours or not. Or maybe it's a bit superficial, pretentious, and perhaps you've already had that experience and want to move on from it. Because I'll say this, according to the statistics from my school, hey guys, how many did I have there? 2, 3, 4,000 people over 11 years of the school. Not a single person who has touched the higher, let's not go further, in ayahuasca, in LSD, and something else. I'm not a specialist in what's there.
Do you have individuals, perhaps who came from similar experiences or backgrounds and were able to break away from this egregor?
And then they moved away from all of this. They stopped smoking, they stopped drinking. They realized that they no longer needed ayahuasca. They no longer need anything else because the higher self is a much higher story. It's much purer than any drug experiments, including those that expand something.
Yes, but at the same time, I want to point out, yes, that is, there's also this position that whoever drinks this cup once sells their soul right away. And by the way, I can see that it's real. There are shamans who implant other spirits, disembodied ones, into people's bodies, as we call them.
Sold the soul? Sold the soul. No, to the egregor.
To the egregor.
We talked about this.
Yes, but they will bring you back, for example, by coming to you.
Of course, you can break away, yes.
So what I mean is, again, about being categorical, I see many practitioners in the information field who are so categorical that once you've done something, you're done, you've taken it in, you can't go anywhere else anymore. That's it, the next reincarnation, God willing. So it's not that scary.
Yeah. Listen, look, what will happen in the next reincarnation? So they believe that it's like a new astral etheric body. In order to detach that strongly from all these things, you need to kind of throw out the astral etheric body and take a new one, right? If it's like this, and now if I don't know how to break it down, if we break it down according to the scheme, it will most likely look like this. But that's not untrue. This is also on a logical level. It's not entirely true because everything that gets dirty, you can clean it.
In one way or another, you can still, as I say, I know that indeed in the bodies of people like us, they attach other people.
Well, and others?
Yes, the same ones are rare, but they do exist. Though it's not common, there are also, not exactly human spirits, but some small entities, little spirits.
Again, because as I see this topic, they are not so common. They really attach an entity in the field, as well as egregorial bindings and connections, so that there's a real entity in the field. We've seen this, meaning we've researched it, and I think we've explored this topic and all related topics through the higher. I wouldn't say that this happens very often, maybe about 5% of the entire sample.
Well, yeah, that can happen. I'm saying that, for example, coming to you for training where you connect, well, of course, you see that, right? From above, a person can also throw out everyone from their field. Of course, the essence is to remove this.
Of course. You can feel me very clearly because, again, the higher I see it as a bright, strong flashlight. You can view all your bodies through it. Strong.
What I want to emphasize is that, yes, despite what they scare you with there, yeah, it doesn't matter there, practitioners, ayahuasca people. Whoever says anything at all, attachments, entities, they've taken your soul higher. You can get back anything. You can get yourself back, right? Of course. No matter what fortune-telling grandma scared you with, some story about how you sold your soul, and some grandfather is walking around with you. Well, entities, anything at all. I've just heard a lot of that. That's the imagination of endless people. And why is it even fantasy? Actually, that happens, but what I'm saying is that it's not irreversible, it's not hopeless. And you can get it back if you go to your spirit, to the higher self. There's no such thing as your higher self or your spirit rejecting you. So, I can't. It's such nonsense that you've irreversibly sold your spirit or gave it away or had your soul taken or something like that.
The soul, precisely as a combination, as we already talked about, of the astral and mental planes, all of that was discussed in the last interview. It can indeed be connected to the egregors and then disconnected from it, but you can't connect its spirit anywhere. That's not the story.
That which you are as a part of the Creator.
Yes, that's yours. Yes, exactly.
You said that Ayahuasca, for example, is such an old method, right? If I understood you correctly. And how do you see it? New methods of a new era. Not even what is happening now, but maybe what will happen in the future. So how do you see the future there, I don't know, in 50 years, in 100 years, in 1,000, maybe even, if you can see it?
This is one of my favorite topics. We've reviewed it an enormous number of times. I'll put it this way again, the world is rising in vibrations. We've already talked about this. In 50 years, I don't see any global changes compared to what we have right now. It's possible for some it's a plus, for others it's a minus. The world will become lighter. It will become easier. It will become cleaner. It will become more spiritual. Gradually, the rigid dogmas will fade away, the ones that say it can only be this way and no other. Otherwise, some bright, obvious blocks will leave, some strong egregorial things, like those that really stick out. For example, you can mention, well, listen, religious fanaticism will fade away, for instance, any kind of fanaticism in any sphere.
To write in the comments that we are against Christ or something like that?
Well, in 50 years, yes, even over the course of 50 years, that's true. Science will develop. Science will develop very strongly, art will develop, and new forms of art will emerge. There will be more and more lightness, more and more at the intersection of different genres, more and more of something unusual, new, something fresh. People will be happier and they'll be less complicated. Naturally, the more happiness there is, the greater the connection with the higher. We already talked about this in that interview. The more lighthearted a person is, the happier they are. The stronger their connection becomes.
And what about tools and abilities? I'm curious, are you saying that you will be happy? So does that mean psychologists will lose their jobs?
No, they just won't work with such heavy patients anymore. A typical example from my life, I have a psychotherapist in my course, a professional hypnotist with a bunch of diplomas. He has clients that are really heavy. Well, you kind of give your all and he still works with them. He pulls them out. In reality, he's just a miracle worker. He pulls us out of situations that are just absolutely incredible, whether it's about depression or health issues, including various severe illnesses and also very serious diseases. And quite quickly, if a person is ready to change, and if they still have the physical capacity, the resources to heal, he changes things on a psychological level. Yes, he changes certain predispositions. He changes all the reasons that led to the breakdown on a physical level. And then, let's say, if a person has at least the resources, like 3-4 months, to work on the physical level, if the physical state has recovered, then they heal. Sometimes it happens that they come in the very last days, and there's nothing you can do about it. But there will be fewer of these heavy cases in 50 years, fewer problems. People will have fewer problems. There will be political, economic, social, and cultural issues. Everything will be there, but not as vividly, not as densely as it is now. It will be more sparse, but in 200 years, this process will intensify. It will intensify and then it will start to appear. I can already feel it there. There will be contact with aliens. I can already feel it there, and the topic of extrasensory perception and magic. There will be much more acceptance.
It's interesting. When will our abilities start? I don't know, the book The Year 2150? Such elementary things like telekinesis, mind reading?
Well, I think by 150. Where is 150 exactly? About that roughly. I wouldn't expect it any earlier. 22nd century. Here are the 22nd and 23rd centuries. Nowadays, some people, especially atheists, say that we are living in a period of darkness. This is not darkness. Atheism is darkness. But it's precisely the access to these energies. You can't not acknowledge them. I'll share a little story from my life here. I was in touch with certain guys from certain agencies. That's right.
Uncles, Spike.
Yes, I call them Uncle Spike, big uncles. We got into a conversation about magic, about extrasensory perception. We talked with them about various research centers, laboratories. We talked to them absolutely openly. Viewers may, of course, not believe us, but I know that's how it was. And these big uncles in the end, well, that's not the point of what we were talking about. In the end, I asked them, I said, I thought you didn't believe in all this. And they said a phrase to me that I will really never forget for the rest of my life. Absolutely serious. He tells me we're not coming from the right position to believe in something or not to believe in something. We use what works. And it's not just them who use it. All countries in the world use this. What works. At the same time, we have at the state level, there are all sorts of commissions on victories, serving science, and so on and so forth. Well, this is kind of a game. It's a certain game, and it will gradually change. If we're talking about time, I assume that somewhere around the 22nd century, maybe even by the end of the 22nd century, closer to the 23rd century, there will be some kind of revolution in science. I'm still hoping for the 22nd, but this reality is a bit fluid. When will scientists' attitude towards extrasensory perception change, to esotericism, to some deep things, and they will to see these things differently?
Officially, yes.
Officially, yes. Officially, there will be some kind of perhaps certain inventions. What's paradox of all this? Esotericism cannot be measured with instruments as of today. Well, there are a number of devices, but it's all kind of not widespread, and they haven't gone through certain documented tests. That's it. When this critical mass of information becomes truly critical, that's when things will change.
When people will already be able to fertilize.
When people, roughly speaking, will already be levitating in red square.
Levitation. I already know a lot about it. From you. It's very energy consuming. I'm sure not everyone will be levitating, but some kind of reading of thoughts at least. It seems to me that it's so elementary. Moreover, my friends and I practice this. Even now, at our level of consciousness, it's already, well, that's true. But there are splashes, it at least works somehow, and if vibrationally the planet, you're saying faith is involved, and all these directions are basically developing. So it seems to me, in 100 years, but I was really hoping that I would at least witness this.
Certain splashes of this process will be around for the next 50 years, but not on a massive scale.
I think, still from 100 and above, what about means of transportation? How we will move around? How will the local architecture look? You know, when you watch some futuristic movies, everything has a certain design. Why is it so streamlined?
Flying ships, the metro, isn't underground, but it kind of floats a bit because, again, it's all about choice here. Architects provide a certain direction, but we still make the choice ourselves. So that no one gets the idea that everything has already been decided for us. Yeah, no, architects set a certain direction, they provide it, and we are already making choices here on our Earth. It's still a choice, it depends on us. I see that, first of all, there will be more eco-friendliness in materials, more greenery, more these renewable energy sources. That's for sure, it will be.
This will be our food.
For example, my diet will be cleaner.
Are there any animals?
You could say I've been a vegetarian for about 12, 13 years. Well, sometimes I eat fish, but mostly I'm a vegetarian. So when it comes to meat, like cows or pigs, absolutely not. I can really feel this egregor. It's an egregor.
The egregor, meat eating.
The egregor of meat eating and the egregor of raw food, the egregor of vegetarianism. My wife and I were on a raw food diet for a whole year. It's a separate, very interesting topic. They told us, well, for the first couple of months, I guess they told us, that was quite a while ago. That was many years ago. Right now, I would see it quickly. Back then, I was a bit lacking in certain awareness, specific experience. I feel that this topic with animals is going to evolve. On one hand, it's a more peaceful position of meat eating from the position of vegetarians. Because until recently, there was really a war going on. So meat eaters clearly spoke for eat, while vegetarians clearly spoke for vegetables and fruits. There will definitely be more acceptance. In the first stage, there will be more acceptance. Not exactly that we gave up cows, but rather everything that we eat, more acceptance of each other. more of that kind of love and trust. I don't see apocalypses. I see that we're moving towards harmony in any case. And a complete rejection of meat will also happen. But for that, we need to make the vibrations even lighter. In 50 years, I don't see a rejection of meat. Again, from 100 and above. That's my prediction.
Will there be any significant inventions as well? That's why I'm asking about meat. It's my periodic dilemma that if you don't eat meat, deficiencies start to arise. It's clear that there are a ton of reasons for those deficiencies, about microelements, vitamins, and so on. But it seems like one of the easiest ways to take advantage of all this. This is about meat. I understand that people don't really stress about it, and there are a lot of nuances related to biohacking. Well, I'm a bit into it. I'm really interested in it a lot. It's not replenished. That's a separate science too. But there are still some gaps and imperfections there. Let's say, will there be anything, again, in the year 2150, or maybe we shouldn't even think about it?
There will be plants that will be at the level of chemistry, at that level. There will definitely be new inventions. And in medicine, there will be a lot of new and interesting things. I don't see it that way, for example. Some people say that we're all going to become enlightened now, that we'll just stop doing science, stop doing medicine, stop doing everything else, tear up our passports and go live in the woods. We're not going to live like that. I don't see it that way. Everything will become easier and more eco-friendly, and there will be new advancements in medicine. There, including with the help of artificial intelligence and inventions. Artificial intelligence will also develop, science will develop, art will develop, it will just become easier and more eco-friendly. This is exactly what I see, what you're talking about. There will be more and more of it. People will feel their spirit engage in psychosomatics and so on, because I, for example, after working through a bunch of blocks, have established a very strong connection with the higher self. I mean, of course, there are still many levels, but objectively, it's already quite strong. Recently, I literally had my blood tested for all the trace elements, and it was just perfect, right in the center for all the points. Although I don't eat meat, and ideally I shouldn't be lacking anything. It's absolutely right in the center, a clear norm like that.
What do you mean by such inventions? Like a time machine? I'm saying flying cars. When will that happen? It seems that I've already seen that they're inventing something like a flying car.
Yes, China.
And you can test it. Someone is buying about...
Well, technology will be advancing by leaps and bounds. Absolutely. You know, even I might share a bit of a conspiracy theory story right now. If you look at the development more of technology, we've had a very sharp, almost revolutionary leap. Starting from the 1940s, from the 40s and 50s of the last century, they suddenly started inventing computers, then touchscreens, airplanes, and everything just kept getting better and faster. Although before that, civilization was just there for centuries. Yeah, she was riding on a horse.
Across the field, and that's it. Well, as they say, you know, there are also many different things. I opened up this topic. There were some resets, something like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, like everything was cool back then.
Then we were reset. I heard a story, and I don't have confirmation of it. This story about the World War in the 18th century, a nuclear war in the 19th century, about how everything was buried under ash and stuff. We can discuss that separately sometime later. I've watched it 100 times. No, it was all different there. And as for technology, what I really feel is that there was this pink incident. Len Logov fell in the state just around the 40s. Something like that with the numbers. I'm not good with that. I'm a humanities person. After that, this whole story with touch screens, chips, and microcircuits began. And when I used to go into the egregor, for example, with the iPhone, I have this feeling that its source is not human. It might be something else now, such as something in a way that seems to be almost as if it is beyond our understanding. Yeah. It's like this revelation that, yes, just a little bit, and the image of the prototype came to me directly in my mind suddenly and unexpectedly, and then all of a sudden, right there in front of me, just like that, out of nowhere, appeared. This, I'm almost sure, maybe for the next broadcast, if it's going to be on this topic,
we can touch on that separately. Just civilization. I'm saying it again. If you're interested, just write to me. If it's not interesting, we won't film it.
We won't film it. I will meditate more deeply. But just off the top of my head, I had this feeling that many technologies related to computers, especially with touch screens, chips, and so on, are fundamentally based on something. These are specifically alien technologies, that's right.
And will they continue to transmit Similar technologies, or what are you getting at?
Well, listen, if we again start from the Roswell incident, a flying craft just fell and it ended up in the hands of the military, in the hands of the Pentagon, the United States. So I don't think they were transmitting it directly. It kind of happened by accident. It's not just that, well, again, from the level, it wasn't accidental from there, but at this level, it looked, like some kind of coincidence. So like here, aliens arrived and they said, "Dear Earthlings, here you go. Here are some developments like this and that." And even to torment.
I thought about some members of the Langa, you know? No, it was right there.
These were exactly prototypes. Right here at the level of physics, it will become like an image. Roughly speaking, the panel figured out how to do this. Yes, they understood the principle. They understood why it works. Scientists, American ones, they understood the principles. They started to dig in the other direction. Something like that happened. I feel like I'm not capturing the whole picture right now. It's very superficial. If, again, the guys are interested, I will meditate more deeply. Then I'll talk about it in the next broadcast. What about...
So I'm asking, will there be any pills that not only replenish our vitamins and minerals, but also provide energy value? Are we finally going to start growing all the organs? Will we even be able to live longer and extend our lives?
Yes, that's true. It's 1,000% true. Again, medicine is already working on increasing lifespan and average life expectancy all the time. Around the world, it's growing a little bit, let's say over 10, 20, 30 years. They call it life expectancy. So in 100 years, it will be even more. How long are we going to live? In terms of time, not globally. Just recently, we were discussing this topic. I really delved deep into it back then, just to not waste time right now. It was 120 years. So from the deep higher self, well, basically not just 20, 200 or even 300 years. I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
These last ones just...
Conditionally from 80 to more 120 years, that's a body that's healthier and more robust than now. Life expectancy will increase by about 20% in the coming years, maybe 70 years. I would say that the lifespan of 70 to 100 years will increase by 20 years. Maybe the quality of life will improve, and the quality of life.
Especially in this final segment, it's better to see that this will be due to the fact that, conditionally, a person first ages and then rejuvenates themselves. It somehow rejuvenates, thanks to new organs, or something new. Or on the contrary, it just starts aging later. There will be many reasons, and he will age later.
Here, we need to look at the complex aspects, physically, psychologically, and esoterically. On a physical level, again, the level of medicine will be higher. Some food supplements will become more common. The level of health and the overall attitude towards health will be more widespread. So everyone will be going to the gym. Well, conditionally speaking, Conditionally, or they will do something else for health. So the very value of health is the demand for self-care will keep increasing. This is on a physical level. Plus, again, such operations for curing diseases will be better and less invasive and more gentle. Yes, with a faster recovery period. Plus, if we now talk about the psychological level, the self-worth, the ideas of psychosomatics, the value of working with blocks, all these ideas will also be very actively present. Because again, using my therapist as an example, you heal. Certain blocks lead to diseases. I personally saw this. This, again, is on the level of fantasy. It's a level of fantasy for the mind.
Moreover, this happened in a session. I had this in my personal experience, yes.
Energy is also changing, of course, yes, on the level of esotericism. Again, through vibrations, we are moving upward, and the planet will become cleaner and cleaner and finer and finer and finer. The cleaner and finer the planet is, the longer physical life lasts. It just ages more slowly, you know. Just take an example and look, I don't know, peasants lived in different conditions, and their mental health probably wasn't great, but still they were peasants. At 20 or 30 years old, they looked like that. Photos from the 19th century, well, you know, they looked like they were 60 years old, you know, sometimes like they were 50. And you can't just attribute that to hard work on the streets. Today, there are actually separate nations. For example, here in the field, there are peoples who, well, they work right in the fields. Yes, but I know some local guys, they are about 35 years old, but they look the same. Plus or minus, not 60, not 35, although yes, they are there. hard work and all that, but no, reality still has its place. The planet will still age, just more slowly, because energetically we will be at a higher vibration. So I would highlight the H3 factor here, both physically, mentally, and esoterically.
How do we get to this good future? What do I mean? You say it's not coming soon, maybe in about 450 years like now. Perhaps people are already reaching a more comfortable life, both mentally and physically in all aspects.
What can help? Maybe my speech. I will be a bit pathetic right now. But for me, the higher self is light. Sometimes people ask me about it. But what are the advantages of the higher I? And then there are no disadvantages. Everything that is higher, I can give this plus. And then this is its theme of purpose and the theme of past lives and the theme. It's just, actually really. So I'll say something now that maybe not everyone will understand, but those who listen with their hearts will truly feel it. For me, connecting with the higher self isn't about purpose. It's not about getting answers to questions. It's always this warm feeling. It's always here. I always feel it, regardless of whether I step into it or not. It's always here. I always know this strange feeling. The universe loves me. The universe loves you. Like in those, I don't know, in the Jehovah's Witnesses, the universe loves me. But for them, it's at the level of a game. Yes, for me, it's at the level of the results of the practice. I always know that everything will be all right. Like 100%. I clearly know that everything will be fine there, both tomorrow and the day after. I call this state my own. In the course Golden Grove of Reality, it's like these 2 points. They are like branches. And if we imagine all the branches as a certain forest, then at the end of this forest, there is something like this. It's like this golden space, a golden field, a golden grove where everything is just fine for you. Everything is good. Your health is more or less okay, and your relationships are good, and your finances are fine, but that's not so important. It's just this inner state of being connected with the Creator, connected with the cosmos, connected with the universe. It's something that can't be conveyed in words. This is precisely such a deep mystical journey, and you realize that this is the most valuable thing in your life. It's you, no? Your spirit, that feeling of gold spreading throughout your body. That's the most valuable thing that can undoubtedly be given to you. There will be purpose. There will be answers to questions, talents, and money, everything you want. But for those who are deep practitioners, for everyone actually, who among my students can see me right now? By the way, write in the comments. You will definitely agree with me. For them, for everyone, they came there to fix their relationships, to fix something. And in fact, when they get this return to themselves, they sometimes just sit there and cry, I don't know, really, for hours, because they say that we have returned home to ourselves, that we have come back, yet not giving up our home. It's this feeling of home in your heart, and that's actually the most important value. Everything else is just that. It's good perks, good bonuses for the mind, just to give you the idea that you need this. Yeah, but when you get to that point and go through this journey, by the end, you might not even remember what you came there for in the first place. Yeah, you do, because you understand that there won't be another one. It's such a complete rebirth back into yourself. And that's the most valuable thing.
And this, well, for me, it sounds almost like something out of science fiction. In 6 months, everyone really finds themselves. That's the kind of connection. For me, it's very important. I know that people search for years and even decades, at least they used to. As mentioned, I really do send it out.
Yes, those who don't stray from this path, those who keep going, what hinders the contact is heard. We talked a little bit about this already, that it's a revolution on this topic. Here's a brief summary for those who may not have seen it, but I highly recommend everyone who hasn't seen it to check it out. It will be somewhere on the side. On the right side, the left side reaches the higher self faster than anyone else. A happy person is the one who reaches their higher self. And if a person has blocks, various egregors, a strong ego, and so on, it takes them longer than 6 months. Look, take it this way. According to statistics, these are just the raw numbers over 11 years. About 60% of the group reaches their goals independently, just with my help, 60%.
So you just have to make it to the end of the course?
Yes, those who listened, who did all of this, who didn't go to any psychologist, who didn't come to my VIP training, who showed up. So in the special group in 6 months, he sat there, yes, well, about 50 to 60%. Those guys who go to the stones in VIP and don't drop out, if we use youth slang, and those who go to a psychotherapist, additionally work through their blocks, then they will have 100% Yes, that's with 100% certainty. Those who don't spit it out after the first session, who don't say, oh, this is all so long, so complicated. Oh, I went to you twice, but somehow I didn't get enlightened. Here, yes, who doesn't stray from this path? Who is really ready to work on their blocks? Sometimes with some people it takes 2 or 3 months to work through things. I had one girl, very much like this, by the way. A real life example. She was really struggling with everything. She had a ton of fears, she had a lot of blocks. She went to see a psychotherapist. He worked with her for 3 months. 3 months is a long time for him. So he's really an experienced person exclusively on the blocks. And then she came to me for VIP. And to this day, she has one of the strongest connections in that group but that person didn't give up on her. That is, if a person quits and does not achieve the result, then yes, naturally there is someone not does this. But those who really go for it, who are confident, who say, no, I'm ready to work on my blocks, I'm ready to change, I'm ready to accept myself, I'm ready to work with my ego, with the ego boosters and so on. They reach everyone.
I've also noticed this thing that the harder a person's path seems to be, the more complicated their problems are. Often the results of these people are much greater, higher, cooler, like they notice something like that. But only when, of course, a person doesn't give up and pays attention. Attention. Even looking at the stories of some famous people, they had a tough time, childhood, a bunch of questions about life, but then they become great people precisely because of that. Let's go through it step by step again.
How does it work in your school?
For me, 6 months still seems like a colossal breakthrough. Step by step, which month is responsible for what, and why this particular methodology to lead a person to connection? More than I do, yes, and what tools perhaps do you use? You've already noted, yes, that there's a psychotherapist available in the course if needed. And what else?
Look, if we break it down by months, then the first month, the main result of this month is liberation from thoughts. A person becomes liberated after the first month, free from certain ideas, thoughts. And from that constant chatter, stir us from self-criticism, from condemning others, well, including that, but first and foremost, it's about freeing oneself from thoughts, from that constant radio, from that chattering mind. A person gains more inner peace and a greater sense of inner silence. I compare it to clearing a room of all that stuff, from all that junk, from the clutter. In order for the room to become clean, spacious, and free, that's the first month. It's the month of preparation for contact with the higher self. In the second month, a person starts to clearly see their blocks. At least the main stones, I call them stones in the flow. Based on results of the second month, well, maybe not all of them, but the main blocks seem to be illuminated like with a flashlight from the higher self. It becomes much easier for him to live already as a result. Based on the results of the second month, he indeed, at the very least, no longer identifies himself with them. And when we no longer identify ourselves with them, we acknowledge the problem. That's already about 70% of solving that very problem. And we no longer act according to this pattern. The third month is about connecting with the higher self. In the third month, a person receives all those essential practices for connecting with the higher self. In the fourth month, we deal with answers to questions from the higher self. Simple. These are simple, specifically on a practical level. Like in the areas of work, relationships, health, finances, that sort of thing. There are many of them. In fact, there are a lot of practices regarding what can be done with the higher self. They change a little bit, and sometimes I adapt them to the request. In the fifth month, it's more complex. Month 5. This is what many people are really waiting for from the higher self. This is about destiny, past lives, and working with blocks through the higher self. I mean, it's the feeling of God, contact with God through the higher self. All sorts of extrasensory skills through the higher self. It's the attraction of various skills through the higher self, not necessarily extrasensory. There are also talents, like poetry, which I talk about, and all of that, along with many other practices. So all of that is in the 5th month, and in the 6th month, we cover everything that didn't fit into the first 5. This is, first of all, the practice of the soul's age, a very interesting topic. This is a practice for determining spirituality. You can determine it by the photograph. We talked about this. The practice of reading a person's field to see how their spark is manifested in the body. The more spirit there is, the more spirituality there is. If you break it down like that, the practice, I call it the soul matrix, is a practice of determination. So for this group, we will launch a special discount group. For your project, we will launch a special discount group I usually have a discount group, but not that often. And it was supposed to be in January, February of the 25th. So we will launch it right now, right here. Exactly. About that, yes. I think maybe by the end of summer, something like that will happen. And there will be this practice, the soul matrix, which determines the kinship between a person and, for example, their relatives in this life. He's just a familiar friend. Who he is for him from the level of spirit, who his spirit is for him from the level of spirit. That's his soulmate, that's his soul family. Maybe this is also a fairly well-known topic. He's just a familiar friend. And if it's a familiar person, then how many lives have you spent together and what kind of lives have you shared? Like karmic lessons, reflect on why you argue often. Did you meet in a past life? What karma do you share? Should you live together? By the 6th month, you've mastered something. Yes, and in general, whether you met in a past life, for example, or not, what kind of karma you have, whether you should live together or not. All of these things can be seen. They're not simple techniques. Well, this is already the 6th month, and by the 6th month, it's assumed that a person has at least mastered something, and it becomes easier for them. It's simpler. For those who are more interested in this path, specifically under my personal guidance. That's what the VIP course is for. By the way, it wasn't there before this year. This is a new initiative that I came up with this year, and it absolutely justifies itself. From everything I see, they are very strong.
You work personally with the person. You told me that you can specifically cancel his request to look at someone in photos or analyze the person themselves.
Yes, it's direct personal work, yes. Usually we have a chat with him, like on Telegram, for example. He can message me anytime and I reply to him, so he writes to me again. They respond, so it's not like that I work there one day on Friday during the full moon. No, always.
No rituals, of course. Everything we've talked about is only through the natural flow of the higher self. And the techniques are meditative? Or how does it look? Do you have calls with the guys, recorded lessons?
These are recordings, courses in recordings for both VIP and the discounted group. But in the discounted group, there is definitely one lecture per week online, because this is your live. It's my life. It's not just that I give them the course and that's it. Do whatever you want. No, this is specifically guidance. In any case, even in the discounted group, it's still guidance. The lectures are released consistently at a specific time. It's usually twice a day, a week, I think, on Wednesdays and Sundays. In the evening at 7 p.m. Moscow time. So I really keep all these frameworks, plus definitely once a week. Most likely on Saturdays it's online and it's also recorded, so those who couldn't make it can watch the recordings online. We work through everything that hasn't been studied, like what the guys didn't quite understand in the main collections. Plus, there are answers to questions, definitely 1, 2, 3 times, as many as needed in a month. I can really see that there are a lot of them. It's already piled up. We have 2 chats. One chat is for communication with the guys. And the chat, it's specifically a chat room where they all communicate and interact. That's also extremely good. They support each other, plus...
So a certain community also remains...
Well, a certain egregor.
Those who are connected with their spirit...
They really support each other. They support each other. The guys who go through these 6 months later say that it was the best time of their lives. 6 months is a lot in life, and I get feedback like this. As for the VIP, they get the course right away, but they can also participate for free in the discounted groups and online sessions. So for them, it's completely open access, but they receive the entire course all at once. They can go at their own pace. And the most important thing is that they can't communicate with me because the groups are still quite large. They try to message me privately. And sometimes I do my best to respond, but honestly, I just can't keep up. So I ended up making a separation. Discounted groups are discounted groups, and the course is specifically a VIP course. Well, the prices there are quite moderate, in my opinion, as accessible as possible. I would, because again, my mission is to bring this to the masses.
Yes, dear friends, to those who responded, of course, all the information will be in the links in the description. And I'll say this, I think that anyone who wants to join this particular session, which is being launched specifically for our project, I believe we'll see each other there. Because Danila personally invited me, and honestly, I feel a connection, and I'm already thinking that I've made this decision. So we will be classmates in this course. I am at a higher level. Together, we will move towards connecting with our source. I thank you for... It's interesting having such a conversation today. I think we have more than one meeting ahead of us. Well, besides your training on other interesting topics, of course, if we get feedback from our viewers. In any case, it was wonderful. Thank you very much for your session, for your knowledge. Thank you.